What an unbelievable day of college football. A day that we didn't expect was going to be very great when you looked at the slate of games coming into the day, the headliner being Texas A&M and Missouri. And then you just kind of had some of these big SEC schools playing smaller opponents. You had Tennessee playing Arkansas, Alabama playing Vanderbilt. You had a rematch of the national championship. And there were some fun games here and there, but it didn't feel like this was going to be a memorable week of college football, and everyone was looking ahead to next week's loaded slate. And my God, this is a weekend that I probably will never forget in my life. One of the most insane weekends I can recall ever as a college football fan. We're going to be talking about a lot of the big upsets that we saw from some of these big teams. We'll get into that first. Now, we're going to do this a little bit differently. We usually go with like a winner and then a loser, but we're going to start with all the losers, just get those out of the way. And this is going to be a really fun video. And there's going to be some pain in here as well, as my team did lose today. But what a weekend, and what a way to cap this off with an unbelievable game in Berkeley. So leave a like on this one. Subscribe if you are new. It's 1:30 a.m. as I'm recording this. So just leave a like. It helps get this out to more people. And let's go ahead and start with who I think has to be the biggest loser of the week, and it's Alabama. Alabama comes in as the number one team. Now, they weren't my number one, but they were the AP number one team in the country. And I didn't love that decision to begin with. This was a team that almost collapsed miserably against Georgia last weekend. And it's a good Alabama football team, but they definitely showed some weaknesses. And today against Vanderbilt, a team that they have really owned over the last 40 seasons. I want to say, I could be wrong, this is the first win for Vanderbilt against Alabama since 1984. That is 40 seasons since the last time Vanderbilt beat Alabama. And Alabama had chances to win this game. And I think Jalen Milroe is a part of the reason why they lost this game. Milroe still, after the game we saw last week, everyone was so quick to put him in as QB1. But there are still concerns that he has. I think his footwork is some of the worst I have seen from any quarterback over the last few seasons. He is so stiff in the pocket sometimes, and his accuracy, or inaccuracy, I should say, definitely showed up today against Vanderbilt. Threw the pick six early in this game, was just sailing receivers in key moments, and I think he has to take some of the blame for this one. But the defense has to also take some blame. This is a front seven that I thought they had a lot of hype. We all love Deontay Lawson, Jahad Campbell, how well they've been playing. But you look at that defensive front and the defensive line, and they just could not stop the rushing attack of the Commodores today. Vanderbilt was running all over them. They were setting up the play action, and it led to one of the biggest plays of the day. Nick Saban would have never let this happen. And I think it's an interesting case now with Alabama, because this is a team that had national championship expectations. And while I still do think they're going to be in the college football playoff, this is a loss that really hurts their resume. And I do think this one's going to sting a little bit. They did move down my top 25, because how could they not? But a really interesting one, and going to be very interested to see how they look against South Carolina, who I think has got an even better rushing attack. They've got better weapons. That defensive line is going to give Jalen Milroe a tough time. So really interesting with Alabama, a game that was one of the most exciting games I've seen. I live near the Nashville area. I was not even joking about 20 minutes from going to this game. I heavily considered going. Just didn't make sense for me, and I'm beating myself up for it because I missed an absolute classic. The other big loser of the week is my team. That is the Tennessee Volunteers. And this game, I don't really remember a game as a college fan where I just feel like I got my heart ripped out. This was that game for me where I felt pain after this game, because I thought Tennessee, for the most part, played a pretty solid game. Defensively, I thought they were incredible. James Pierce, it's not going to show up. I think he had one sack in this one, and everyone's going to look at that. James Pierce was a freaking monster in this game. He was everywhere. The defense was flying around, creating pressure on Taylon Green, so much so where Taylon Green went out of this game. So prayers up to him. Hope he's okay. The defense was really, really good in this game. The offense was It was one of the worst offensive performances I've ever seen. And it's definitely the worst I've seen from a Josh Heupel-led team. I think we got to start with the rushing attack. I mean, Dylan Sampson, he got it going a little bit at the beginning of the third quarter. It looked like, okay, they're able to run the ball again. This is huge. And then it just kind of fell flat again. They just weren't able to run the ball. I thought Cooper Mays had a pretty solid game in this one, but there was just too many inconsistencies on the offensive line in terms of injuries, in terms of just false starts and penalties that just kept moving them behind the sticks, and they had to play from behind. But I think the big concern with Tennessee moving forward is got to be Nico Iamaleava. Nico played one of the worst games I saw all weekend, and this is as a non-biased Tennessee fan. He was terrible today. The inaccurate throws that he made. Now, I know he had the big one late in the fourth quarter on the drive that would have given them the lead, but the announcers keep talking about, oh my gosh, he looks so poised in the pocket. He looks so comfortable. He didn't really look comfortable. His footwork was off in this game. There was just too many deep shots, overthrows, bad misses to receivers, and that's why they lost this game. And we saw a little bit of that against Oklahoma. A lot of inconsistencies in the tape from this game, and he is a projected first-round pick for the 2026 class. He didn't really show me anything that made me feel like, okay, this guy can be a franchise quarterback at the next level. There was a lot of concerns I had. This offense fell flat, and you got a game against Florida who, on paper, that should be an easy win. But at this point, nothing seems to come easy for Tennessee. This one, I think, hurts really bad because Tennessee, they still have some tough games on their schedule. I think this was kind of a must win, and unfortunately, they fell flat. Michigan is another one of these teams that really disappointed, and it's not really anything that should surprise you. Michigan's been terrible pretty much all season long. It started week one, barely beating Fresno State. I immediately was like, okay, there's a red flag with this team. They get blown out by Michigan, barely pull off a win against USC. They have a game against Minnesota where they get bailed out by the officials on the onside kick, which the officials have now come to confirm. And then they play Washington today in a national championship rematch. And the offense, yet again, can't make plays. They have no quarterback. I mean, this is now the third quarterback. I believe it's Tuttle. They just have no answers at the quarterback position. Donovan Edwards had a big play in this one. That was really the only big moment from the Michigan offense all game. And the defense, kind of when it mattered most, they weren't able to clamp up like you'd see. I thought Mason Graham, he made some solid plays, but that Washington offense was tough. They were running the ball. They made really powerful moves against a powerful defensive front, and it just didn't seem like Michigan had any answers. And you got to start asking questions looking forward. Is Sharon Moore going to be the guy? I know it's his first year. There's heavy expectations. I get that. But the inability to even search the transfer portal to find one of these quarterbacks. Look at what Cam Ward just did in Miami. Look at what Dylan Gabriel's doing in Oregon. Look at what Will Howard's doing in the team in red. I won't say the name for you guys. I mean, these transfer quarterbacks are making an impact, and Michigan's just stuck with Alex Orji and Davis Warren and quarterbacks that just aren't winning you football games. And when you look at their upcoming schedule, I mean, I don't think this team's going to beat Indiana. They're definitely not going to beat the team in red. They just have a lot of games coming up that I just don't know. It's to the point where I'm not so sure that Michigan's going to even be bowl eligible. I think their offense is that stagnant and that poor. Your defense can only do so much. So I got Michigan as another loser, and they have fallen out of my top 25 completely this week. Another team that fell out of my top 25 completely was the USC Trojans. I think the Miller Moss Heisman campaign has officially died. I was kind of on that train where he was sitting at fourth on my Heisman leaderboard going into the week, and he has fallen off. This is a team that I still feel like is missing that toughness of the Big Ten that they haven't quite adapted to yet. Lincoln Riley, we know that his offenses are usually very good. And the weird thing is, this offense doesn't feel that great. The playmakers aren't making plays. You're not getting really great play from the offensive line this year. And on top of that, you look at the defense, and while the defense has shown flashes, you still do have your reserves about a Lincoln Riley defense. And it showed today. Minnesota was able to run the ball effectively on this defense. They end up getting in the end zone late. And then Miller Moss, kind of like what he did against Michigan, when the moment mattered most, he just wasn't really able to show up. So, yeah, there are some concerns with this USC team. They have fallen out of my top 25 because you lost to Michigan, who we just talked about. I don't think that's a very good loss on the resume. And now you lose to Minnesota, who I think Minnesota is better than their record shows, but those are just two losses in conference that are really going to hurt USC. I think their college football playoff hopes are done. And, yeah, they're not a top 25 team in the country for me right now. So I think that was a massive loss for USC, and one that I think is going to hurt them in terms of their playoff hopes and even their bowl eligibility potentially. The other big losers got to be Missouri. I don't even want to spend too much time on this. Missouri's a fine football program, and they've really turned it around over the last couple of seasons. I'm not as panicked as a lot of people are. I feel like I kind of had my reserves about Missouri anyways. They weren't in my top 10 coming into the week. I don't think they've been a top 10 team for me all season long. I had a lot of concerns about Brady Cook, and I've talked about my concerns with Missouri over the last few weeks. Brady Cook just does not look like the same player we saw last year. The defense has had some question marks, and this team feels like it's lacking toughness. They squeak out a tough one against Boston College, barely beat Vanderbilt, and then they get blown out on the road against Texas A&M, and just an absolute embarrassing performance for the Tigers. And now this is a team that it's their first loss of the season in SEC play against a good Texas A&M team that has really turned their season around. We'll talk about them in just a little bit. I'm not too worried about Missouri. Did they fall down my top 25? Absolutely. Do I think that I'm a little bit more worried about them this week than I was last week? Yes, but it's not one of those situations where I think they fall out of the top 25 or I have them in the bottom 5. I'm not there with Missouri right now. If they have another one of these performances, sure. It's a bad loss, but I definitely think it's one they can bounce back from. And that's really all the losers that we have from this week. So let's get away from some of the negativity and let's talk about some of the awesome performances we saw this week from the college football landscape. And we got to start with Diego Pavia, quarterback at Vanderbilt. We haven't really talked about him much on this channel, but he's played really well for Vanderbilt. Go back, watch the week 1 game against Virginia Tech. He is a tough quarterback. They run a lot of read option with him, similar to Haynes King, who we talked about early on in the season, week 0 with Georgia Tech. He is a quarterback that is really good on the run. He's got good pocket awareness, and he's got a pretty good arm. And against Alabama's defense, he was incredible. 16 of 20, 252 yards, 2 touchdowns, as well as 56 rushing yards in this game. He was just dissecting this defense. The offensive line for Vanderbilt did a heck of a job protecting him up front. But he did an incredible job of finding guys. Now, they didn't push the ball down the field a ton, but he made good plays when he was asked to. And do I think Pavia is going to be like this first-round pick quarterback? No, I don't. But I do think there is a role for him to be like a Taylor Heineke-type backup quarterback in the league. This is a guy that's incredibly tough. He's been an underdog his whole life, was incredible for New Mexico State, one of their better quarterbacks, comes to Vanderbilt, and he's been really solid. Was good in that game against Missouri that we talked about. He was really good against Virginia Tech to pull off that upset in week 1. And he's been a really solid and consistent quarterback this season that I think he might play himself onto NFL draft boards if he does decide to declare. Diego Pavia was a big winner from this week and one of the more fun players to watch in college football right now. Another winner for me is going to be Le'Veon Moss. For the second straight season, the second straight week, he's just had a monster game for the Aggies. 12 carries, 138 yards, 2 receptions in this one, 3 touchdowns, including a house call to start the second half. Le'Veon Moss is another name that we can just put in this pool that seems to just be never-ending of running back prospects in this draft class. He's got good vision, has incredible burst and quickness in the open field, which you really like to see. And there's a lot of upside with Moss. I don't think he's going to declare coming out this year. Shows some upside as a receiver, but that's not really where Texas A&M uses him. His speed in the open field, though, is dynamic. If he gets a step, he is going to get it to the house. We've seen it each of the last 2 weeks, and he's been a big part of the Texas A&M offense that has really taken a stride. They looked absolutely horrible week 1 against Notre Dame. 5 straight wins for the Aggies. This is a program that's playing on fire. I think they've got some really interesting upside to maybe sneak themselves back into college football playoff contention. Le'Veon Moss was a big winner, though. Really liked what we saw from him today. Another winner for me is going to be Ja'Cory Brooks. Brooks was a player coming into the year that I really didn't have very much expectations for, and I was a lot lower on than the consensus. He's a good player, I thought. I thought that there was just concerns. His just didn't run routes to his full capabilities. Thought that he had too many injury concerns that just kind of got phased out of Alabama. He was a heavy high school recruit, and they just kind of stopped going to him. An Alabama team that was kind of lacking receiver talent the last few seasons. You would have thought Brooks made more of an impact, and he really didn't. And today against a really good SMU team, Louisville is another team that did fall suspect to an upset at home, but I thought Brooks was really good today. 3 receptions, 121 yards, 2 touchdowns, had that incredible play. I want to say it was a screen pass in the third quarter where he's got blockers in front. He showcased that speed and that athleticism in the open field that I just didn't really feel like we had seen a lot of with Brooks up to this point in his career. And I was really impressed by that. Do I think he's like this awesome receiver prospect? Probably not. He's probably still going to be a day 3 pick. But it's nice to see one of these guys that was in the transfer portal, heavily recruited, make an impact on his new team. That was a concern that I had with him. And he's playing pretty well for Louisville this season. And I thought he had a really good game today against SMU. Another winner, we got to talk about the military schools. Both Army and Navy undefeated, 5-0 going into this season, going into week 6 right now. Navy in the American playing really good football, had that statement win a few weeks ago against Memphis. Spoiler alert, they're in my top 25 this week. Army not playing the best competition in the world up to this point, but they're winning football games. And we just love to see the military academies get wins. And I think it just, I don't really know where this is going to go. Truthfully, I don't think anybody does. But if both of these teams continue to win, that Army-Navy game this year could have a lot more stakes to it, and it could make for an all-timer because that game is already one of the best atmospheres in all of college football. These two teams face off for a spot potentially in the college football playoff. Electric in the place, and I think that these are two very good football teams that are playing hard-nosed defense, running the ball effectively, and Army and Navy both deserve a big shout-out going into week 7 now. Looking ahead again, Jalen Royals is a player that I think's been really good, and I don't think I have the right stats on him, so give me just 1 second. Like I said, it's nearly 2 in the morning here. I'm going to give myself a little bit of the benefit of the doubt here. Jalen Royals' numbers looked a lot better than this. He had 9 receptions for 211 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Royals was a my guy coming into the year. Really athletic player who I thought was one of the best route runners in the draft class. Think of him like a Ladd McConkey from last year's class. Reliable hands, really sharp route runner who gets open across the middle of the field, sells his routes incredibly well. And I thought Royals had a really nice impact this game. Utah State got blown out by Boise State. That's neither here nor there. We're talking about the players that really helped their draft stock, and this is a game that I think really helps Jalen Royals propel himself up draft boards even further. I think he's a day 2 pick pretty convincingly. Another winner, and I think the final winner on my board today is going to be Jonas Sanker, safety from Virginia. Big win for the Cavaliers against a good Boston College team. And Sanker was one of my favorite prospects, regardless of position in this draft class. Has a fumble recovery touchdown today, 6 tackles, was a very smart football player, played a lot in the box. And I just wanted to give him a shout out for the fumble recovery touchdown. He was incredible today and was a big part. That touchdown was kind of the difference for them in that game against Boston College. And Jonas Sanker continues to be one of my guys in this upcoming draft class. Going ahead and taking a look at the Heisman race, yeah, I think that Travis Hunter, Ashton Jeanty, it's 1A, 1B. Put them in any order you want. I mean, Jeanty is doing unbelievable things. I mean, I've never seen anything like this. Obviously, if you can't tell, I didn't live to see Barry Sanders. Ashton Jeanty, his numbers are insane. It seems like every week it's like, what can't this guy do? He's breaking tackles. He's got incredible breakaway speed. He can block. He can catch. He is the perfect running back prospect. I don't know if he's got any weaknesses in his game. I mean, would I be shocked if he was the number one pick? Yes. Would I be upset about it? Depends on who's picking, but probably not. He might be the best player overall in this draft class. But you got Travis Hunter, who's playing like a top 5 corner and receiver in the country. I mean, what more can you ask for from a guy who's playing all these snaps? I still have Travis Hunter as of now, but him and Jeanty are 1A, 1B. And then Cam Ward, I am so happy I stayed up because I had the top 25 slides written, and I was like, I'm gonna come in here and record it. Something told me just stay awake and just see where this game goes. Miami comes back, and Cam Ward has a defining Heisman moment. He's just so comfortable. His composure in the pocket is unbelievable. He looks so comfortable at all times, makes really good decisions, has an absolute laser. Now, the interceptions have got to get cleaned up. These cross-body throws aren't going to fly at the next level, but Cam Ward's been incredible. Jalen Milroe did drop from my number 2 spot. Just too many inconsistencies in terms of his accuracy, and I think that loss does hurt him. And I love what Shedeur Sanders is doing. He's accurate, he's comfortable, and he's making good decisions with the football all season long. But truly, I think this is a 3-man race. I think it's been a 3-man race for the last 2 weeks. Travis, Ashton, and Cam Ward. I think those are your 3 Heisman favorites going into the week. Taking a look at my new updated top 25 teams that have fallen out. UNLV, I probably should stop ranking group of 5 teams because every time I rank one, it seems like they lose the following week. UNLV with a heartbreaking loss to Syracuse, they fall out. Talked about USC, we talked about Michigan. Louisville, though, back-to-back losses, lose at home to SMU. The Notre Dame one, I think, is excusable. This one, it's not. I've got Louisville falling out of my top 25 completely, and this is what it looks like coming into the week. Texas stays at my number 1 spot. I thought people overthought it. Texas has been the best team in the country. I don't know why anybody questioned otherwise. They stay at number 1. Ohio State, convincing win against Iowa. The first half did not look pretty. Second half, they really turned the gas up. I thought we saw a really good play from Will Howard. They move up. And then it's about damn time we see good play from Oregon. I've been waiting for this Oregon team. The offense finally looks comfortable, have a big win against Michigan State. Now, I know it's Michigan State, but that's a statement win. And they've looked good for 3 straight weeks now. I moved them up. They were at number 9. I moved them up number 3. Now, it helps that the SEC teams are all losing. Oregon still remains undefeated. I cannot wait for Oregon, Ohio State next week. And then Miami jumps up from number 5 to number 4. I mean, this team, they just can't give up. I mean, an unbelievable comeback each of the last 2 weeks, down double digits in the fourth quarter, and they just find ways to win. You could talk about the refs mistargeting all you want. This is a team that's playing good football, though, on both sides. Have to get off to a quicker start, but I've been really impressed with what we've seen from Miami. And then Penn State moves up from number 8 to number 5. I think the defense is playing incredible. They've got some really good wins on the resume, beating Illinois, beating West Virginia. That win looks better each and every week. Really like what Penn State is doing right now. Georgia beats Auburn. Didn't look great for the first half of this game, but ended up getting the win. And then we talked about Alabama and Tennessee. I moved Ole Miss down as well, mostly just because I'm not really moved by them. The offense didn't look great today either, and I still would have Alabama and Tennessee over them. And with their losses, I just kind of think it moves everything else down. So I got Ole Miss, Tennessee, Alabama, all kind of fighting for that number 2 spot or number 3 spot in the SEC right now. I still think Georgia and Texas are the number 1 the top two, people are going to be upset that I have Georgia over Alabama. But like, you tell me what's the worst loss on the resume, losing to Alabama or losing to Vanderbilt? Georgia remains ahead of Alabama right now. And then Clemson, this team just has really proved me wrong this year. Cade Klubnik didn't even play very good. I get you beat Florida State. Everyone's beating Florida State, but pretty impressive win there. Notre Dame has a bye, but they jump up. I just think I've been too low on this team. They're running the ball well. Defense is playing good. I got them at 11. Number 12, Texas A&M with a huge jump up. This team's playing incredible on both sides of the football, particularly offensively, though. You get Connor Wigman back. Things looked very comfortable for them. Iowa State, got them as the top team in the Big 12 right now. They're at my number 13 spot. Rocco Beck's playing great. Let Baylor hang around a little bit too long, but this team's winning football games pretty convincingly. I feel like they are the clear favorite right now in the Big 12. Utah stays, LSU stays. Indiana, 5 straight 40-point games for the first time in program history. Start putting the Hoosiers, giving this team some respect. I mean, you beat Northwestern, you beat Maryland. They're undefeated in conference play right now. Curtis Rourke looks incredible, and Kurt Cignetti has completely turned this program around. Indiana might be in that conversation for the Big Ten title game right now. They're playing that good. I know we still got Ohio State and Oregon and Penn State ahead of them, but I think Indiana, really impressive stuff. Kansas State stays where they are, didn't play today. Boise State, I didn't have them ranked. I don't know why. I guess the one loss to Oregon kind of deterred me, but they got to be up there. I've got them now as the number 18 team in the country. This team has the most dynamic player in all of college football. The offense is playing well. They are the clear favorites in the Mountain West and a very, very clear favorite to be that team, that 12th and final college football playoff spot. Missouri falls from number 11 to number 19 for me. Like I said, not too worried about it. They're still going to be in my top 20. Another loss, they do move further. BYU stays the same for me. Pitt is undefeated right now to my amazement. I thought Pitt was going to be a really disappointing team. Eli Holston playing really, really good player. You're getting great play from Kanata upfield. The defense is playing well. Really great win against North Carolina today. I'm really liking what we're seeing from the Pitt Panthers. They make the top 25. And we talked about Navy already. Oklahoma drops, haven't been very moved or convinced by anything they've done. And with Boise State jumping them, I think Pitt is a little bit better, Navy as well. And it's the same thing with Illinois. The loss to Penn State's fine. I just kind of like the other two teams a little bit more. And then I put Nebraska back in the top 25. Look, you beat Rutgers. It was a good win. I think the Colorado win's a good one. They've got a solid couple of wins on this resume. Defense is playing tough. They're running the ball okay. I still like this Nebraska team, and I got them as the 25th team in the country. And that's going to do it for my top 25. Arizona is right there. I just didn't like how close they were with Texas Tech. Colorado is in that mix for me as well. We'll see kind of what happens with them next week against Kansas State. But take a look at this now. This is going to look a million times different next week. Once we get Ohio State, Oregon, Texas, Oklahoma, Alabama, South Carolina, LSU, Ole Miss. I mean, there's Colorado, Kansas State. Unbelievable games on the schedule next week. I can't wait. Stay tuned. An incredible week of videos coming. A super weekend of prospect spotlights coming next week, and I can't wait. Leave a like, subscribe if you are new. I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.